Okay, let's look at fiscal policy. Okay, so put fiscal policy. And today we're going to look at contractionary and expansionary fiscal policy, right? So we're going to look at expansionary fiscal policy and we're going to look at contractionary fiscal policy. When are we going to use expansionary fiscal policy? When are we going to use contractionary fiscal policy? Basically, we will end up using expansionary fiscal policy when we are in a recessionary gap. And we will tend to use contractionary fiscal policy when we are in an inflationary gap. So let's just start off now with the situation of running expansionary fiscal policy, right? So your economy is not doing well. So let me put this to one side, if I can. Okay, so I put that all off to one side. Now I will just draw my graph. So I'll have a situation showing you a recessionary gap. So you should be quite well aware of what it looks like now. Here you have your Y star. You have your AD0, AS0. The economy is not doing well. You have Y0 and P0. So this is where you are at the moment. The economy is not doing well. Okay, I'll put that to one side for now. Right? And remember, with fiscal policy, you're trying to change aggregate demand. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be playing around with this curve. We're going to shift it. Okay, so let's go to aggregate demand. We know what aggregate demand is. Right? You've seen this a number of times already. Aggregate demand equals output equals C plus I plus G plus NX. So essentially what the government wants to do is the government wants to shift out aggregate demand, which will end up shifting out output, right? We're going to increase output and hopefully take us to Y star. In order to do that, it has to increase at least one of these, right? Probably more than one, but we keep it simple. Just one of these. Okay, so if you're going to do that, and you are now in a recessionary gap, I'll just quickly come back to that situation, right? Just put that to one side. Remember, we are in a recessionary gap because output is less than potential output. We're in a recessionary gap. The economy is not doing well. The government will want to run expansionary fiscal policy, right? And in order to run expansionary fiscal policy, the government could potentially increase government spending. It could potentially reduce taxes, right? Which has the net effect of increasing consumption and investment as well. But we just keep it simple for now, okay? So let's say it takes one of these options or even both of these options. Okay, in which case you should see, I will just put that to one side. Let's say it increases government spending. If it increases government spending, then there should be an increase in the government spending, which means this increase in government spending leads to a shift out in the aggregate demand curve and a shift out in the output, which then means we can shift out our aggregate demand curve, right? And we can do it in such a way that it will intersect over there. We go to AD1. The economy will improve, done properly, back to Y star. But we will end up at a higher price level. Right? We'll end up at a higher price level. Right? So what will we end up with? Right? We will end up with the economy improving, but we will also enjoy, well, I don't know if enjoy is the right word, higher prices, which essentially means inflation, right? So that is your expansionary fiscal policy. Okay? And then the opposite will happen with your contractionary fiscal policy, right? So with your contractionary fiscal policy, you're starting at your inflationary gap situation. Economy is doing better than normal. Okay, so with your inflationary gap situation, we can draw the diagram. And we got the Y star, we got the initial aggregate demand, the initial aggregate supply, and the economy is at P0 and Y0. So the economy is doing better than normal, right? Output is higher than potential output, right? The economy is doing well. So what the government needs to do now is to slow down the economy and bring it back to potential output. Again, it's going to do that by running contractionary fiscal policy, which takes us to our aggregate demand identity. Okay. So what it needs to do now is to reduce one or more than one of these in order to reduce aggregate demand, which in turn will reduce our output. So what it can do, it can reduce government spending, or it can increase taxes, which has the net effect of reducing consumption and, well, investment as well. But again, just keep it simple. So let's say it reduces government spending. Okay, if it reduces government spending, then we're going to see a fall in government spending, which means aggregate demand will fall and the economy will start to slow down. And we can depict that as a shift inwards in our aggregate demand curve. So I'll move that to one side. Bring this back. And so there will be a shift inwards in the aggregate demand curve, which I will need to draw. Yep, there we go. AD1. The economy will go back to its potential GDP, and the price level will fall. Right? So what are we going to get? We are going to get a fall in output back to potential GDP and a fall in prices, right? Either inflation is going to grow slower than before, or inflation is going to be negative, indicating deflation or falling prices.